Hi there, this is another timeless message for the collective, and the topic I wanted to cover today is the role of the mind and our egos and how it actually distracts us from achieving what we need to in terms of spiritual enlightenment. So to start off, I'd like to share the distinction between the mind and the ego. The mind is actually responsible for creating what we know to be endless thoughts and feelings, and that helps us act based on the thoughts that we're getting. Meanwhile, our ego is helping us understand our thoughts based on our sense of self and identity that we've created for ourselves in our 3D world. We want to talk about how the mind and ego actually act as obstacles on our way to spiritual enlightenment as we're trying to make progress in meditation and really keep us from getting to know our true self at the soul level, which really the identity of us at the soul level is pure consciousness. The mind and ego actually flood us with constant thoughts and hold us hostage in the 3D identities that we've created for ourselves, so that during the day when we are acting from a place of the thoughts that are produced on autopilot as well as the 3D identity that we've created for ourselves. So together, these kind of run the show for us during the day. And as you become aware of witnessing how these two function, you are actually able to bring conscious awareness to both of these. So how do we actually overcome the challenges presented by the mind and ego so that we can learn about our true soul? For starters, you want to start to become very aware of the role the mind and ego play in your day-to-day life. Become conscious about your thoughts, actions, and behaviors. And when you become aware, your true self and your consciousness will become the observer in situations, and you'll realize that a lot of what you're doing is due to your mind and ego that are almost operating on autopilot. So how can you actually test this for yourself? Let's say you sit down for a cup of tea for yourself. As you are trying to enjoy your cup of tea, I want you to be able to pay attention to the thoughts produced by your mind. You would think that you're just about to have a cup of tea, so surely this should be very simple. However, very quickly you'll notice that your mind will quickly run from one thought to the next. You'll think about something you did yesterday, that'll lead to another thought, and then you'll realize what I need to still do, so on for today. And of course, you'll also be thinking about tomorrow, the day ahead, the weeks ahead, and continuously in planning mode. You will find that your brain is constantly producing thoughts, and it's almost impossible to stop. So how are you supposed to ever enjoy the present moment if your mind is always giving you senseless thoughts about the past and the future? So for that, I'd like to share with you a quote by Eckhart Tolle, which says, "Be alert and present and see that your identity is not from your past story. Who you truly are is the alert presence that is inseparable from the present moment. You are this, which has no name and no form." When you start to bring conscious awareness to your thoughts, you will start to make effort to basically ending the endless production of these thoughts and just enjoying the present moment. So really, conscious awareness is your first step to trying to still your mind, whether it's during the day or in meditation. Whenever you catch your mind running towards endless thoughts, you want to bring it back to the present moment. It'll keep going in terms of this pattern, and every time you catch it, you want to be able to bring it back into the present moment. When you do this consistently, you will see that your ability to stay in the present moment will last longer and longer. Now, when you sit in meditation, you'll experience the exact same challenge. It's hard to silence the mind However, with continuous practice, you'll be able to remove the noise created by the mind and start to experience peace and bliss that comes from the stillness. You have to practice this during the day. If you make it a practice and bring conscious awareness to these patterns, it'll become that much easier when you actually sit in meditation. Now let's just shift over to the role of the ego for a second. Now, why is the ego acting as a barrier to you and your enlightenment? Now remember that the ego's job is to make sense of your thoughts based on the 3D identity and reality that you've created for yourself. So anything that kind of tries to mess with this identity and reality you've created, the ego automatically steps in high gear to re-establish the emphasis of your identity. Now, this is a serious problem and obstacle to your enlightenment because you've been told that to experience enlightenment, you need to unlearn what you are and who you are in the 3D to really understand who you are at the soul level. So unfortunately, these two things are directly in conflict with each other. Your identity is based around everything from your religious, cultural beliefs, your ancestral patterns in your DNA, your age, education, and personal identity that you've built for yourself, including the roles that you play during the day, which may be a father, a mother, a sibling, a child, a parent, whatever that may be. So you are so accustomed to being this particular identity in the 3D that it is very difficult to get to know who you are at the soul level, as long as the ego is there to continue to emphasize this identity back to you and reflect it back to you on a day-to-day. So you may be thinking, okay, well, what does that really look like? Like, how is this really an obstacle for me when I sit in meditation or I'm trying to get to spiritual enlightenment? And I'm going to give you a little example here of what this may look like in your 3D reality. This could be anything from the arguments that you're having with your siblings, parents, maybe emphasizing your authority over the children that you have, and just fighting to basically have your perspective be known and re-emphasizing your dominance in particular situations. If someone hurts you, you're holding resentment and not forgiving them because you feel insulted by the way that they treat you. These are all functions of the ego, which is continuously emphasizing how important it is for you to maintain a particular identity. The ego keeps you stagnant in re-emphasizing these beliefs and patterns that you have, and you continue in a reactive mode to produce them over and over again. Without appropriate conscious awareness, there's no chance that you are going to be able to make changes to these patterns, and your ego will continue to create the same pattern for you over and over again. When you get into an argument with someone, you will re-emphasize your position based on the beliefs that you have and the identity that you have in the same manner, not really giving consideration to what the resolution needs to look like. You may continue to act out of fear and anger because these emotions are so deeply ingrained in you and your identity that you don't know how to change these behaviors and patterns. So the question is, if the ego is so preoccupied with re-emphasizing your identity in your world over and over, how do you peel it away to get to the soul and real consciousness that you truly are? Because remember, this isn't about just during the day. You are going to experience the same challenge when you sit in meditation. The thoughts that you produce, your identity and ego will jump in to re-emphasize that you were right, and you will find yourself between mind and ego creating the same thought patterns. Together, these two act as a barrier, keeping you from getting to know your true consciousness and soul. Whenever the mind and ego are active, become the observer and disconnect from the pattern. Pull yourself back to the present moment every time you find these two becoming active. The more you practice this during the day, the easier it will become when you try to subdue the mind and ego during meditation. With continuous practice, you will find that you can easily silence the mind and ego which will help you clear your path to getting to know your true self at the soul level, and you'll be able to enjoy the present moment and true peace and bliss. I'd like to end with a lovely quote by Lao Tzu, who was a Chinese philosopher. And the quote is, "If you are depressed, you are living in the past. If you are anxious, you are living in the future. If you are at peace, you are living in the present moment." Thank you so much for listening. I hope this was helpful. God bless.